Let's talk about an NFL draft class I love for the Cleveland Browns. It includes Shedeur Sanders, but this is one of the coolest and best draft classes in 2025. I'm going to tell you why. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on the step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We talk college football year-round. We talk football year-round. So if you're into that, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comment below. Which team do you think put together the best NFL draft class for 2025? I think the Cleveland Browns have a really strong case for doing just that after you take a look at what they got in the first round all the way through day 1, day 2, and day 3. I'm going to start with Mason Graham, defensive tackle at Michigan. An Ohio State winner, right? Like, he just kept beating up on Ohio State, kept beating them up for 3 straight years. And along with Kenneth Grant, formed one of the best interiors of a defensive line, not once, but twice. He's part of that national championship winning team in 2023. He also helped beat Ohio State in a year where, frankly, it was the defense or die at Michigan last year. Just a phenomenal player and angry at the point of attack. This is, I think, a 3 technique for most people, right? Maybe you want to flex him out to the 5, perhaps. But this is a guy that you want to put over a guard and say, go beat the hell out of him. He is every bit of the specimen that he looks to be, and I think first round, somebody's going to take him. That he ended up at Cleveland is just going to make their defensive line that much stronger. You're also going to hear me talk about these players from a college and high school background because I'm the national college football analyst at Fox Sports, but I do enjoy talking about these players. I do enjoy talking about the NFL, and I love to see players that have the capacity to be great in the NFL and not just in college, but you can do a whole lot worse than going 3-0 against the Ohio State Buckeyes, all right? The next player that I want to talk about is Carson Schwesinger, who is one of the best linebackers in the country. He just happened to play on a so-so to crappy UCLA last year. You heard that the man had 90 solo tackles, which led FBS last year. 90 by himself. Tackling is usually a defensive sport. It's a team sport. Usually got to take more than one guy to bring down the kind of players that Carson Schwesinger would be asked to tackle, mostly tailbacks. But he was able to do that 90 times by himself for 136 total tackles. First team All-American, second team to some. Great linebacker, a classic inside linebacker that can go sideline to sideline. You're going to enjoy watching that guy play football. The next guy that I wanted to talk about is also second-round selection, and that was Quinshon Judkins, a pick that they got at 36. And Quinshon Judkins, for me, was the #1 tailback on the board. I had him ahead of Ashton Jeanty because I'd seen what kind of a player he was at Ole Miss before choosing to transfer to Ohio State. And the way that I put this into context, as a true freshman at Ole Miss, Quinshon Judkins rushed for 1,567 yards. Make sure I get that number right on 274 carries, which makes him the second most prolific tailback as a freshman in SEC history, behind Herschel Walker, who had 1,616 yards and, won a Heisman Trophy at Georgia. Quinshon Judkins is fast, he runs angry, and he was the goal line threat every time Ohio State got into the red zone. Travion Henderson was the home run hitter, and he deserved all of his flowers, one of my favorite players. But the guy that really you could depend on to go get you the hard yards, but also break off one for 90-plus yards, get a TD, was Quinshon Judkins. He had that year at Ohio State, and in that year at Ohio State, they won a national championship. A big part of it is because they had Q Judkins to go get them in the end zone, never really having to settle for 3, being able to go get 6 anytime you put it in his belly. I'm not sure what the Browns are going to do at tailback. Again, I'm coming at this not talking about what needs need to be filled, but just the caliber of player that you drafted. I got a hard time looking at Quinshon Judkins and not feeling as if that guy is not going to earn carries early and often. You want to hand him the ball. You want to get him out in space, and he can be a real producer for you in the National Football League. Just ask his running backs coach, Carlos Lockett at Ohio State, who came up as a correctional officer in Memphis, ends up getting on at Memphis, works his way over to Oregon before coming to Ohio State, but has one of my favorite lines about running backs and players in general. Hey, don't put no soft-baked cookies around me, okay? They gonna crumble. That ain't what we do here. He is the kind of man who says, look, I'm going to go get guys that are better than the guys that I got in the room, and they know that. I'm bringing somebody in here to beat you. If you can beat them, good for you. If not, I'm going to find somebody that can. Quinshon Judkins wanted that challenge, accepted that challenge, and then shared the carries with Travion Henderson. I think the reason that they were so good in the backfield is because you were able to have both those guys fresh for a 16-game season, which is just one short of an NFL regular season. Not too shabby. One of the jewels of this 2025 NFL draft class I want to talk about next, man. Fannin Jr. That this guy lasted until the third round is remarkable to me. Fannin Jr. was a tight end at Bowling Green. But to look at his numbers and to look at his frame and his ability, we're talking about a wide receiver, right? This is a guy who had 117 receptions last year for 1,500 yards at Bowling freaking Green, 10 TDs. I think if Tyler Warren didn't play, 3 different positions at Penn State, quarterback, run the football, catching passes from Drew Aller, and was their best receiving threat on a team that, again, made the college football playoff, we might be talking about Fannin as being the John Mackey Award winner. The guy screams Mark Andrews to me, but Mark Andrews, before he put on some weight, put on a little bit more weight for Fannin, that might be great, but I genuinely believe that this is a glove fit for Cleveland. You want a guy for one of your quarterbacks that's going to be open, that's going to be a great security blanket, that's used to catching the ball a bunch and getting down the field, you go get Fannin Jr. Remarkable player, over 180 receptions in his career, 2,300 receiving yards. But again, if he hadn't played at Bowling Green, he played at, say, Ohio State, you would be talking about a guy that could be selected in the first round and nobody would blink an eye. Instead, he falls to third round to the Cleveland Browns. Then you get to the quarterbacks, right? Dillon Gabriel is one of these players that came back for another year because he got a 7th-round draft grade as he was trying to enter the NFL draft at Oklahoma, right, where he beat Texas. Yeah, he was remarkable. And then goes to Oregon, and in 1 year leads them to the Big Ten championship over Penn State, over Ohio State, getting that win regular season, gets him in the college football playoff. And the only time that I've ever seen Dillon Gabriel be flustered by a defense, not know what he was looking at, was that Ohio State Rose Bowl game. Other than that, we talking about 6 years of a guy understanding everything he sees, being one of the best pre-snap and post-snap players in the sport. He's just short and he's slight. His arm is not that big, but it's big enough. And we're also talking about a guy who is going to go into the National Football League as a rookie, second all-time in NCAA career passing yards with over 18,000. Again, 6 years. Case Keenum needed just 4 to get to 19,000, but you get my point here, right? Bo Nix is also 7th on this list. He is a guy that can compete with Joe Flacco for that job right away, which I think is what Kevin Stefanski was going to draft when he went to go get him. I'm also looking at Dylan Sampson here, who you get Dylan Sampson, you get Quinshon Judkins, you get him in the same draft. So you've got 2 of the best SEC tailbacks of the last 3 years, period. Full stop, right? Dylan Sampson was the straw stirring the drink at Tennessee. He's the SEC reigning offensive player of the year after rushing for 1,491 yards, 24 TDs. All this that you've heard about Nico Iamaleava and his value to Tennessee or not value to Tennessee since transferring to UCLA for trying to hold them ransom, trying to get $4 million when he was going to make $2 million. All Tennessee fans would have you know, and frankly college football fans, is that it wasn't Nico Iamaleava that was generating any offense for Tennessee. It was Dylan Sampson. Great between the tackles, great out of the backfield. When you needed hard yards and people knew you were going to run the football, he was still able to go get those. This is, once again, a guy like Quinshon Judkins that can produce right away. So you got not thunder and lightning, but thunder and thunder. Both of these guys are hard-nosed runners. Both of these guys have breakaway speed. Outstanding players. I mean, we're talking about a guy who also averaged nearly 6 yards per carry for his career. 422 carries for 2,492 yards. Not too shabby, man. 22 rushing touchdowns last year. Again, had it been another year, we're probably talking about a guy who's up for the Heisman Trophy in Dylan Sampson. But, it was the year that it was, and Cam Ward is the Heisman Trophy winner. And then, finally, we get to Shedeur Sanders on this list. 5th-round selection for them. Fell to 144, a guy that a lot of people had with a first-round grade. Not just taking him at the position, but given his ability. So now you put him in a room with Dillon Gabriel, who's also going to be a rookie if 5 years older, and Joe Flacco, who's ancient, but, a guy that had proven to many last year he can still play. And you're going to open up the competition. I think with Shedeur, you're going to get a lot of what you were looking for from Dillon Gabriel. A guy that is great when the pocket is clean, can get the ball out of his hands quickly, reads it great post-snap and pre-snap. Given an offensive line, probably puts up the same sort of numbers that Dillon Gabriel did at Oregon, which I think is another reason why Oregon was so good. They were able to run the ball effectively, and they had deep threats down the field. There was no run game to speak of at Colorado. Not a bit. They were dead last in rushing per game. Not because they wanted to throw the ball over the yard, but because they simply could not run the damn football. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it the year before that either. If you give the man a run game, like you're gonna with Dylan Sampson and Quinshon Judkins, and you give him some wide receivers that can go, clean pocket, he's going to be able to compete with Dillon Gabriel, and then you get to have a real competition for who your quarterback of the future is going to be. Very excited about the Shedeur Sanders arc. Very excited about him getting selected. And I realized that it's the Cleveland Browns. I realized that y'all ain't had the best luck. I should say you've had the worst luck ever when it comes to quarterbacks. But I think between two of these guys, you're going to figure out somebody that can help you. Again, we've said this before, but I choose to be hopeful that this is the time that the Cleveland Browns get this figured out. I'm going to go through another couple of draft classes here in the coming days and weeks. If there's somebody you want me to take a look at, please leave that in the comments below. But for the most part, this is fun, man. I need to talk about the NFL just a little bit more.